Together as one on stage, singers from the two Koreas join hands at an inter-Korean celebration of music in Pyongyang. On the political side, pre-summit talks between the South and North are delayed by a day until tomorrow. His next shot at political glory after a number of failed attempts, software tycoon and former presidential candidate Ahn Cheol-soo is announcing his bid for Seoul mayor, with the June elections just 70 days away. Plus, a female suspect is dead in a shooting at YouTube HQ in California, which has left at least 4 other people injured. So, our top story this morning, North Korea has suggested delaying by 1 day this week's planned working-level talks to discuss the details of the upcoming inter-Korean summit. Seoul's Unification Ministry says North Korea proposed the two Koreas hold talks to discuss protocol, security and news releases on Thursday instead of Wednesday as previously agreed. The North also offered to hold working-level talks on Saturday in order to discuss ways to set up an inter-Korean hotline at the offices of President Moon Jae-in and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Earlier on Tuesday, the South said that it will send a 7-member delegation to this week's working-level talks led by Jo Han-gi, a presidential secretary on protocol. South Korean musicians performed their final show in Pyongyang with North Korea's Samjeon Orchestra in front of a packed house on Tuesday, and by the end of it, there was barely a dry eye in the arena as the artists came together to sing for peace and reunification. Kim Mo-kyun reports.
It was 2 hours of peace and harmony. Under the title We Are One, the 160-member art troupe began their joint concert with their North Korean counterparts at around 3:30 p.m. South Korea time. Initially, the performance was set to begin an hour later, but was changed at the request of the South Korean side. This time around, the concert was held at the 12,000-seat Ryugyong Jeongjuyong Gymnasium, which is 8 times larger than the venue for the first performance held on Sunday. The venue is where South Korean artists last performed in 2005. The group, the first South Korean troupe to perform in North Korea since then, consisted of nearly a dozen artists, including legendary singers Jo Yong-pil and Lee Sun-hee, K-pop stars Red Velvet, and Seo-hyun of Girls' Generation. Prior to the performance, a government official traveling with the troupe said the North Korean troupe shortened its performance time to give more stage time to South Korean artists. Unlike the first concert on Sunday, where Seo-hyun emceed by herself, this time she was accompanied by Choi Hyo-sung, a reporter from the North's Korean Central TV. The concert got into full swing when female singers from the two sides showcased a North Korean song entitled Baekdu and Halla Are My Fatherland under the accompaniment of the North's Samjeon Orchestra. The joint performance ended with a standing ovation after all the musicians sang 2 famous songs from each side, North Korea's See You Again and South Korea's Our Wish is Reunification. After the concert, the head of North Korea's Samjeon Orchestra, Hyun Song-wol, said she was delighted.
I'm glad because I think the concert went well. Both sides did well.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, who attended the first concert on Sunday, did not show up this time. Following the performance, the South Korean artists, together with Culture Minister Do Jong-hwan, attended a dinner hosted by Kim Young-chol, vice chairman of the Central Committee of North Korea's Workers' Party.
I want to express my extended gratitude to everyone who worked for the success of the joint concert, which contributed to improving relations and cooperation between the two Koreas.
The troupe, together with a taekwondo demonstration team, returned back to the South on Wednesday morning, bringing the curtain down on their historic 4-day stay in the North Korean capital. Kim Mo-kyun, Arirang News.
So the South Korean art troupe to North Korea have completed their 4-day trip to Pyongyang. They returned to Seoul early this morning. The first such concerts held in 13 years held great significance and opened doors for more inter-Korean exchanges in the future. Lee Ji-won with more.
Inter-Korean cultural exchanges stretch back to 1985, when Seoul and Pyongyang held performances on the sidelines of the first reunion of war-torn families. Since then, the two Koreas engaged in several cultural and sport exchanges until the early 2000s, either to pave the way for a major diplomatic breakthrough that led to the thawing of ties, or to further underscore and celebrate the peaceful mood in the region. After several years of increasingly frosty relations, the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics in South Korea provided the optimal backdrop to resume exchanges. And according to experts, the latest South Korean performance in Pyongyang holds even more meaning, not only because it was a first in 13 years, but from the way it was arranged.
This time, it all happened very swiftly, without the South Korean artists having to change their lyrics or anything. It shows how much both sides are trying to understand each other and be considerate.
The resumption of inter-Korean cultural exchanges is expected to bring about a ripple effect in other cultural aspects as well. South Korea's Culture Minister Do Jong-hwan, who led the South Korean art troupe to the north, said he hopes to resume numerous joint projects, including the excavation of the ancient Korean dynasty's Manoldae Palace, a UNESCO World Heritage Site in the North's Kaesong City, and the compilation of unified Korean language for the dictionary 결의말 큰사전. Both projects had been running for about 10 years until they were halted in 2015.
Previously, there have been various ministerial-level meetings following the Inter-Korean Summit discussing specific ways to develop the relationship. So hopefully, after April's summit, these cultural exchanges and joint projects could be part of their talks.
Experts say the South Korean government should work with North Korea to set up an environment to make these exchanges more stable, so they are not merely a way to break through tense situations, but a genuine opportunity for Koreans on both sides of the border to understand each other better. But some experts say these wide array of cultural exchanges need to be taken step by step.
The differences are still so huge. Overwhelming the public with each other's culture could backfire and make people feel more distant from one another. Thus, along with carrying out cultural exchanges, the government should also help people understand North Korea and its culture.
After more than a decade of escalating tensions and widening gulf between the two sides, Seoul and Pyongyang are once again utilizing inter-Korean cultural exchanges to narrow differences and work toward mutual understanding and harmony. 이지원, Arirang News.
Now, there are just 70 days to go before Koreans head to the polls for local elections in mid-June. The elections have largely been overshadowed by the rapid developments in terms of North Korea diplomacy and other political affairs at the National Assembly here in South Korea. But candidates are busy readying their campaigns. For more, we connect to our political correspondent Kim Min-ji on the phone. And Min-ji, a big name and a well-known face, throws his hat into the ring today.
Mark, that's right. Former presidential candidate An Chol-soo, and now who heads the Bareunmirae Party's committee for recruiting candidates for the local elections, will announce his bid for Seoul mayor in about 20 minutes' time. It's his second time. Back in 2011, he announced a bid, but dropped out of the race, expressing support for Park Won-soon, who is now competing for a third term. Now, the Seoul mayor post is expected to be hotly contested, with Park planning to run again and two veteran lawmakers within the ruling Democratic Party of Korea seeking to run. The ruling party will be holding primaries, and a candidate will be finalized sometime in mid-April. From the main opposition Liberty Korea Party, the candidate will be former two-time governor of Gyeonggi-do Province, Kim Won-soo.
Wow, so quite the field of heavy hitters already then. And while the race for Seoul mayor heats up, preparations continue for the local elections. And we also know the parties have a full plate of tasks to be getting on with at the same time. The April session at the National Assembly has made no progress whatsoever.
You're right, Mark. The April session was supposed to kick off on Monday, but Parliament has been at a practical standstill with rival parties at odds over key contentious bills. The ruling Democratic Party of Korea hopes to pass a bill establishing an investigative agency to deal exclusively with corruption among high-ranking officials, while the opposition wants to pass a revision to the Broadcasting Act that would guarantee neutrality and fairness at public broadcasters. Now, floor leaders of the country's negotiating parties met this morning. However, they failed to narrow their differences and made no agreement in resuming parliamentary affairs. Now, there are concerns as rival parties have a stack of agenda items to go through in April, as it's the last working session ahead of the June local elections. Now, for starters, they need to reach a deal on amending the Constitution. With the president already having submitted his, it's been a race against time as the ruling party wants to hold a referendum alongside the June local elections. That means rival parties need to reach consensus by no later than May 4th in order to get other legal procedures complete. And on top of pending bills sitting at Parliament, rival parties also have to deliberate on the government's extra budget bill once it's submitted on Friday. It's going to be a tough session as the two biggest opposition parties say they will cooperate in parliamentary activities if the ruling party doesn't budge on key contentious bills. And we should remind everyone that it's an opposition-led parliament, and cooperation is a must for the ruling party that's short of a parliamentary majority. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you very much, Minji, for that report. That was our Kim Minji reporting from the National Assembly, and we'll bring you the updates on what Ahn Cheol-soo has to say during our next newscast. Now, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has reportedly invited President Moon Jae-in to come visit him in Tokyo before the landmark Inter-Korean summit takes place at the end of April. Kim Hyo-sun reports.
There are reports Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has invited President Moon Jae-in to Tokyo ahead of the Inter-Korean summit slated for April 27th. Citing multiple sources, Japan's Kyodo news agency reports that Abe invited President Moon when the two talked over the phone last month. The report added the proposed meeting is intended to ask the South Korean leader to raise the issue of Japanese abductees in North Korea when he sits down with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. While President Moon and Abe are scheduled to meet for a trilateral summit with China in Tokyo in late May, Kyodo analysts that the Japanese leader saw it was necessary to meet with President Moon before the Inter-Korean summit in order to avoid being frozen out from the latest developments unfolding in Northeast Asia. The report, however, explained that President Moon avoided an immediate answer, adding he might not be able to accept the invitation as he's tied up preparing for the Inter-Korean summit. Meanwhile, the Japanese daily Asahi Shimbun reports that senior North Korean officials are talking about a possible summit between Pyongyang and Tokyo in June. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
The United States has unveiled a list of 1,300 Chinese goods subject to 25% tariffs as part of punishment against Beijing over its intellectual property rights violations. The U.S. Trade Representative's list, which covers $50 billion worth of annual Chinese imports, includes industrial technology, transport and medical products. The measure comes a day after Beijing began levying high duties on nearly 130 American goods. South Korea saw a fresh high in its foreign exchange reserves for the month of March. According to data released by the Bank of Korea on Wednesday, the total value as of last month was around $396.7 billion, up around $2 billion from a month earlier. This breaks the previous record set in January. The BOK attributed the rise to the depreciation of the US dollar, which hiked up the value of South Korea's other foreign currency deposits. South Korea has detected an additional case of foot and mouth disease at a pig farm near Seoul. It's the second case of its kind this year and is close to a farm that reported the first case of 2018. The Agriculture Ministry says the second case of A-type FMD was confirmed at a farm in Gimpo, located 30 kilometers northwest of Seoul, during a livestock inspection. The first case was confirmed on March 27th, also in Gimpo, leading to the culling of over 900 pigs. Affecting cloven hooved animals, the disease is highly prevalent during spring. Now, the number of people suffering from a condition called forward head posture has been steadily rising over the past few years. And experts say one of the factors contributing to the trend is the excessive use of smartphones and computers. Jo Sung-min reports.
According to the National Health Insurance Service, as of 2016, there were around 2.7 million people in Korea diagnosed with forward head posture. The agency gathered data for 5 years starting in 2011 and found an annual rise of 2.4%, meaning a total of 300,000 new cases. Forward head posture, to be specific, is when the vertebrae in the neck slant forward so much that the ears are in front of the shoulder blades. It's also called scholar's neck and reader's neck. And as you might expect, common symptoms include headaches and pain in multiple parts of the torso, shoulder blades, and neck. Health experts blame the excessive use of mobile devices and computers, long hours at the desk, and underdeveloped back muscles as some of the main factors. Data show that the people most affected by scholar's neck were in their 50s, accounting for more than 23% of the total, followed by those in their 40s, 30s, and seniors over 60. Significantly, the number of younger patients in their 20s and 30s has surged. That could be because they spend more time on their smartphones than any other age group. Experts warn that posture problems at a young age can lead to more serious neck and spinal problems down the road, and they recommend not hunching over a smartphone or computer screen for longer than an hour at a time. 조성민, 아리랑 뉴스.
Now we're going to take a look at stories making headlines around the world, and we start in the United States. There has been a shooting at YouTube headquarters in California. For more on this and other international news, let's turn to our Noah Aram. So Aram, what's the latest?
Well, Mark, at least 3 people have been wounded, and the suspected shooter, a female, was found dead in an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound, according to a spokesman for Zuckerberg San Francisco General Hospital. 2 people are either in critical or serious condition and another in fair condition. According to witnesses, there were 2 or 3 shots, followed by about 10 shots at the time, with the incident taking only about 30 seconds. Police investigating the shooting say they're still looking into the motive, but reports say the shooter is believed to have known at least one of the victims. And also, just last month, YouTube announced it would ban contents that promote the sale of guns and gun accessories, as well as videos that teach how to make guns. The incident has again sparked calls from Democrats for tougher gun control. In other news, President Trump says he plans to deploy troops to the border with Mexico until he gets his border wall, in what seems to be a sign of frustration with the lack of progress on his campaign promise. His proposal came during a visit with Baltic leaders on Wednesday.
So we are preparing for the military to secure our border between Mexico and the United States. We have a meeting on it in a little while with General Mattis and everybody, and I think that it's something we have to do.
During a luncheon, Trump added that the U.S. should learn from what he calls strong Mexican border laws.
That's because Mexico has very strong immigration laws, as we should have. We should have those laws. We don't have. We have immigration laws that are laughed at by everybody. And it's got to be changed. We need the wall, we need the protection, and we have to change our immigration laws at the border and elsewhere.
Active duty service members are prohibited by federal law from being used for law enforcement, but the National Guard has been used to boost security at the border in the past 12 years. Trump's proposed military deployment comes amid reports of a so-called caravan of migrants from Honduras heading for the United States. His comments have taken the Pentagon by surprise, which was struggling to answer questions on the exact details of Trump's proposal. British scientists say they are unable to verify that the nerve agent used to poison a former Russian spy and his daughter was made in Russia. The head of the Porton Down Defence Research Lab said they could only identify the nerve agent as military-grade novichok, but couldn't pinpoint the source. He added that establishing its origin required other inputs, such as intelligence, which only governments have access to. But he did say the methods used to create novichok were, quote, extremely sophisticated and was something only in the capabilities of a state actor. Russian President Vladimir Putin said he was, quote, bewildered by the speed at which Prime Minister Theresa May peddled an anti-Russia campaign. He also demanded that Russia be part of the investigation into the poisoning of Sergei and Yulia Skripal. French train services have been severely disrupted as rail workers went on strike Tuesday, the first day of a 3-month rolling walkout that will affect 2 days in every 5. It could potentially be the biggest strike against President Emmanuel Macron's labour reforms since he took office last May. France's state-owned rail company, SNCF, said 87% of high-speed trains and 80% of regional services were cancelled on what local media are calling Black Tuesday. It also warned that major disruptions were expected the day after. Workers fear the proposed reforms could lead to the SNCF's privatisation, which could in turn take away their job-for-life guarantees, annual pay rises and the right to early retirement.
Good morning. Most parts of Korea will see a big drop in temperatures along with rain, and Beijing is also having a rainy Wednesday. Rain that started in the northern parts last night is spreading to the southern parts of the country, so Seoul could have partly cloudy skies for the rest of the day, while down south there's likely to be rain until late at night tonight. Temperature-wise, those in the southern provinces will notice a big drop in afternoon temperatures today. Gyeongju had a small heat wave with temperatures soaring to 28 degrees Celsius yesterday, but rain will bring down the temperatures to 10 degrees this afternoon. Meanwhile, Daegu and Busan will rise to 12 and 14 degrees Celsius, while Seoul will make it to 17 degrees with some sunshine expected. With that, let's take a look at the international weather for viewers around the world. So most of South Korea will notice much cooler temperatures due to the rain. Many regions in North Korea will have similar weather conditions to the south. And as for the rest of Asia, as I said, Beijing will have a rainy day along with much cooler temperatures. Meanwhile, Perth will be under sunny skies while Sydney will be rainy, but the sun will return in Sydney on Thursday. Heading to North America, rain and thunderstorms during the day in Chicago on Tuesday could lead to snow by evening and unseasonably cold temperatures for the rest of the week. And as for South America, there will be nothing but sunshine in Santiago and Buenos Aires. Taking you to Europe, police extended their travel warnings as snow continues in Scotland. Lastly, to Africa, Tripoli will have unseasonably warm highs at 30 degrees Celsius. And that's all the weather update for now.
Well, that's all the news we have for now on this wet Wednesday morning here in Seoul. Our next bulletin is coming up at noon Korea time in around an hour and a half from now. So until then, goodbye.